All right, class. So the last part of this lecture is putting it all together. We have looked at a timeline. You've read a source that provided some background, some historical context. I provided a little bit of a background about the Mexican-American War. We've looked at 3 images from before, during, and after the gold rush, and we've looked at 2 documents, both of which, to some degree, corroborate what we have already said. Huntley's descriptions do corroborate, but they also, as I mentioned, leave some questions. From it we see that, yes, the population is booming. That corroborates the assumptions we made from looking at the images. We see the growth of the city between that time. He gives us some numbers. We've made the observation that the number of ships that are coming into San Francisco are increasing, which again speaks to increased economic prosperity, increased importance in terms of trade and export-import, and also just the importance of that region globally or at least nationally. But there were some important things that we are forced to consider. For one, Huntley's information tells us at a specific moment how many people, how much money, how many ships. But what it fails to provide us is with the context. We have nothing to compare it to. How many people came before? How many people or how many ships arrived 1 year or 2 years before his observations began? How much money came in or left the city? It could be that the year that he is observing is in fact a decrease, as opposed to what we are assuming is that it's this continued massive increase. So again, with Huntley's source, it does provide us important information, but taken by itself, it raises many questions about how this fits in with the whole historical context. All right. So the final piece of this is putting it all together. So remember, the historical question is, how does the gold rush affect San Francisco? What I want you to do is take a moment, and as part of this assignment, I want you to use these sources, use DeMacy, use Huntley, use the images, and I want you to answer this question once and for all. Based off of the images, based off of the primary sources you have at your disposal, how does the gold rush affect San Francisco? As you write, consider the evidence. So if you say the population increased, well, how do you know that? Make sure to speak specifically about how we know the things that we do. So you might want to reference an image. You might want to describe the differences in the images. Maybe you want to use Huntley to talk about population numbers in that moment. Maybe you want to say that San Francisco was affected by the gold rush, as evidenced by the fact that it's economic, or it prospered economically. So how do you know that? Again, speak about the images, speak about how the number of buildings increased, that the city became much more developed. Questions about the amount of bullion that is coming in and out of the city. So what I'm looking for is for your definitive answer. Based off of the evidence we have, don't go looking at Wikipedia, or using these sources, answer the question. How does the gold rush affect San Francisco?